obviously during, but we learned in California, it can happen before or after the on-the-job training. So throughout the continuum of being a registered apprenticeship, you have to have those pieces in place, plus certifications. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, Sean or Wendy, but.
Yeah, well, I'm going to pass it to Sean in 30 seconds. Just want to be clear about the difference between registered pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is the job, right? You're coming to your employer with a certain set of basic foundational skills. And they hire you like they would hire a traditional entry-level person, but instead of just hiring you and putting you to work and leaving you be, your supervisor they are agreeing to create a mentoring relationship at the workspace and to also map your progress with you according to the federally registered competencies. So an apprentice who comes in and say we have a digital video editor pathway. So if you're an apprentice editor, you have a senior editor who's working with you. You work independently because you probably come into that job already certified in Adobe Premiere, for example. But there's still a lot you don't know. You haven't been at a workplace like this, a post house like whichever one you're at. And over the course of a year, you're going to get 2,000 hours of mentored learning on the job. And that's breakthrough. And that's where the gaps are right now in registered apprenticeship, is convincing the employers that this is the way to do it. The good news is that in many states, there are reimbursements available for employers who hire apprentices. In North Carolina, where we're starting a program, NASCAR is our lead employer, and smaller employers, they get back a certain amount for hiring, but NASCAR doesn't really need the money. But any small production house in North Carolina that hires one of our apprentices gets back 70% of the first 6 months' salary and a large training grant. So those costs are covered. So it can be a sustainable program. The pre-apprenticeship model is for young people and others returning to the workforce. We have a veterans program, one targeted specifically to women and re-entry folks, is that we know you need more time to be really workplace ready. And so we raise money for programs that are anywhere from 3 months to 9 months paid pre-apprenticeships, where we work with our community-based training centers. They're hired, quote-unquote hired or stipended by the training centers, who provide a very beautiful on-ramp to the skills that the local employers need to want to hire these folks. So if there are post houses, if there are production houses, if there are game design companies, we ask them, what do you need your entry folks to know? Not only their technical skills, but how do you want them? What are the social emotional skills that they need? And we build those in, and we insist that they come to the pre-apprenticeship programs. And that's the key, and I'm really interested in learning from you guys, who invites employers into the classroom? Do they show up? Do they do more than just, do they review portfolios? Do they share their lived experience? Do they mentor on an ongoing basis? Because we would totally love to help bring folks from the industry and really help them connect and fall in love with these students, so that the hiring can be so much more catalyzed. But I think something that we haven't mentioned yet that everyone needs to know is that Arts to Work is grounded in principles of equity and inclusion, and nothing happens at Arts to Work without that as an underpinning. Employers have to go through equity labs, and our primary focus is BIPOC young people, traditionally marginalized or excluded from opportunity, and creating all the resources we can. And our expert in this area and the guiding light from the beginning of the program has been Sean. Sean, why don't you use the other mic just so we're more COVID safe than you taking my mic. How are you responding to everything that we talked about thus far?
What do
teachers need to know?
Wendy and Allison don't talk enough. We need these sergeants at the battlefront right now, because apprenticeship is here and now. And Wendy's talking now about something that I'm very passionate about, which is equity in this space. That yes, let's get them the jobs, but how are they going to stay in these jobs, right? What is a pipeline, which we've identified, right? We all know this is like the major gap, that this pipeline has not existed before now, whether it's codes or whether, you know, there was just a lack of vision at the company to understand the importance of diversity and inclusion in their space, where now this is the season for it, right? And it's never been more right, but how do we do it, right? So as teachers, how many teachers are here in this room?
How?
Right, well, you are the superheroes. Yeah, so it's like, as teachers, like, all of this, you know, I'm curious, like, what your takeaways are gonna be, and we'd love to hear from you, and the seat to the right of Wendy is still empty. So, please feel free.
I'm gonna go get.
Oh, yeah, feel free if someone is so moved and inclined to come up, but, what do you do? What are your tools? What is your takeaway, right? That's the goal. At the end of the day, we want you to walk away and actually have a takeaway. So, as we're speaking about equity in this pipeline and what you can do, one of the things that I loved about Jeffrey Canada, for instance, was a vision of like Beatty College, a vision of I think it's 97 blocks with just that area in Harlem, where it had a vision that we need to start younger, we need to start earlier, right? So a lot of the work that we're doing has led, just like right now, we're on a battle at KIPP for like esports in middle school, right? Because it's here now, we don't have time to wait for that. So these things need to start earlier for the understanding for our learners, the mentors, the teachers, and things. So how do we start this work earlier? So Wendy had mentioned the pre-apprenticeship. We are also in a space of what we call sometimes a pre-apprenticeship. So when you're talking about middle school students, yeah, they may not be, you know, working right away, but that's the time actually, 8th grade, 7th grade, that's the time to really start to embed these learning principles, this kind of like work ethic, all these things, right? And that is some of the work that you all can do. And so we want you to walk away with some tools on how to do that.
And before Wendy goes to hobby, I want to just talk about one of those tools that's actually here in the room right now. So Jeremy is here with us from a company called Edge Factor, and I want you to take the mic and talk about that piece that you're building for that young school to career pipeline with that platform, because I think it's exactly what Sean was just talking about. The other thing I want to say is I want to be explicit. Our employer partners, and I can speak to the apprenticeship program that I built, not the one that Wendy has built, but I think it's the same. They will not hire minors. Okay, that is the apprenticeship paid on the job training will happen at the 18 age mark. And it's because related and supplemental instruction in California can happen before the paid on the job training. You can actually start a youth apprenticeship in your capstone course if you align with competencies. So that's something we're working on. It's either pre-apprenticeship, which would have to, in our CTE model, be like intro concentrator, right? But to do so, you have to teach what the competencies say you have to teach. And that's why in California, we are aligning the new CTE model curriculum standards with the competencies for registered apprenticeship. So just know that's coming, and Allegra will help me expedite it. So I said that on the other thing too, she's laughing. But I'm gonna turn it over to Hobby, and then I want Jeremy to speak about some of these tools that are like emerging, and he also has a session right after this, so you can learn more about that as well.
This is building the apprenticeship movement.
Yeah.
Our store is one, there's many opportunities, but just to say, the Alliance for Media Arts and Culture is available to come to any school in California to help you transition.
Yep.
For a nominal fee, to be able to transition CTE programs into apprenticeship-based, competency-based learning. So, please